leading up to the steps.
Oh wait, yes, that is my work. I'm sorry. Let me give you my mobile. Morning one.
That's okay, I'm used to that.
Taking a dance. Come here.
It's so
hard.
I would like to.
582.
You and your daughter? How many do you need? Just two?
Go back.
That's all. Let me get you to it.
They are starting Didn't do it.
Joanna's got a song.
All right, turn to your left. Turn to your
It's a new
left,
dance
turn to your
company,
right.
so
One of you will be unemployed.
Family subscribe, so you'll be doing us a favor.
Hopefully one of you will not be voting for Trump.
2 hours. Mom's a Stanford White.
Apparently in order to not make ridiculous remarks, he needs a teleprompter.
Good morning. Welcome to this wonderful
Manchurian candidate.
Cats band. What does Cats band mean?
Well, we'll find out in a little bit.
All right, okay. All right. But before we do any of that, we have a special welcome for a Hudson River person who's now back with us, Meg Downey. Meg, where are you? There she is, in blue-green. Meg, you are now a member, and I wonder if you might say one or two words, because we're delighted that you're back. And of course, she used to be in Poughkeepsie, and then she went down to, what's that, Tennessee?
Tennessee.
What's that?
Meg, welcome, darling. You're officially a member.
Thank you.
And it's Mark Molinaro's appointment. And Mark signed the letter the day before yesterday. Right. Yes. Meg Downey.
Yes, I heard about this last night, so I'm very, very excited to be here. I used to be the editor of the Poughkeepsie Journal, and so my introduction to the Greenway was really writing editorials about the concept of creating a Greenway, and I think the first one was around 1989, so shows you how far back I go. But I really felt deeply that the effort to create this wonderful link between all these cultural sites and to really pull together the wonderful heritage of the Hudson River in one effective way was so critical to the growth and preservation of the Hudson Valley that now that I'm not a journalist and I'm allowed to be on boards like this is really a thrill for me, really exciting. So I'm very happy to be here and hope I can contribute something, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Thank you.
Now I can find my glasses.
The pledge.
We do the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's the flag?
Right there.
Right there.
Say, can you say?
Thanks for moving the flag.
Winthrop, you lead us? You're good at that. Come on.
No, you,
All right. All right.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, now, I'm Barney McHenry, and the chair of half of this. The other half, of course, is Kevin. But we traditionally go around the room and introduce ourselves. And why don't we start with Win Aldrich at the corner here?
I'm Wynn Aldridge, the governor's appointment to the council.
Scott Keller, Trails and Special Projects Director and Finance Manager for the Greenway National Heritage Board.
And our newest member.
Meg Downey.
Stefan Yarbeck, Greenway Conservancy, National Heritage Area, and board member of Kotspot.
An organizer of this meeting, and thank you very much.
I'm Debbie Head, and I'm the Albany County representative to the on the Communities Council.
Good morning, I'm Jamie Eager with the New York State Department of State.
Lynn Vonderheide, Rensselaer County's appointee to the council.
Betsy Jacks, I'm the director of the Thomas Cole National Historic Site.
Jeff Olson, Alpha Planning and Design. I'll speak to you all in a few minutes.
John Dean, Design.
County, Dutchess County. I'm here for County Executive Marcus Hall.
Sarah Olson, still with the National Park Service.
And our perpetual godmother, and you know that Sarah is stepping down in July 1st. And then this autumn, mark your calendars, October 26th? Okay, that's Sarah Olson Day in the Greenway. And so don't go anyplace because
Passport will be confiscated.
because if you think you're escaping the Greenway, you're wrong. But thank you, Sarah. And now, see, where should we start? Mark?
Sure. Mark Castiglione, the Director of the Hudson River Valley Greenway and National Heritage Area.
Joel Griffith, Mayor of the Village of Tilly.
Rob Lane, Regional Plan Association.
Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey, Greenway Conservancy and Secretary.
Jane McLaughlin, Greenway Conservancy and Treasurer.
Jane Daniels, Greenway Conservancy.
Andy Bicking for Steve Rosenberg and Sina Hudson for non-voting member.
Erica Kane, I'm District Director for Assemblywoman Barrett, who does not represent my hometown of Tivoli, but I'm happy to be here on her behalf.
Frank Bergman from Hudson River Boat and Yacht Club Association.
Good morning, everyone. Megan Taylor, I'm the Regional Director for Empire State Development's Mid-Hudson region and representing the Commissioner.
Andy Schmar from the Hudson Islands Land Trust and the Putnam County representative to the Communities Council.
This is your, stop for a second. Andy, this is your last?
This is my last meeting, Chairman.
Okay. Andy has been a member of this board. Formerly, he was, of course, a distinguished graduate of that military school down the river. But you're leaving and going to
North Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina, highlands of North Carolina. So it's
well, you'll be greatly missed, Andy, and we have. Well, should we give him that damn thing now? It's in the program anyway. Okay.
Cindy Lansett, I'm a member of the Greenway Conservancy. Nancy Beard, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and I'm here on behalf of Acting Commissioner. Linda Cooper, State Parks and Historic Sites, representing Commissioner Harvey from South Delaware.
Dave Church, I'm the Planning Commissioner of Orange County.
Now the folks in the rear, starting on my left, your right, on the first row.
Larry Schaffer, the Village Administrator in Irvington, and one of your grantees.
And Brad Conti, Village Manager, Village Map, also on the representatives.
Dan McLaughlin, Allen Landing.
Alan Center Supervisor of the Town of Marlborough.
Marion Schneider, Board Chair of the Historic Peanut Street, I'm here on behalf of the Town of Village of Sioux Falls.
Steve Adams, Carolina.
Robert McKeon, Town Supervisor here in Warehouse. We have two wonderful villages, and I can't tell you which one is my favorite.
Gregory Farmer, Portland Market.
Board member of the Historical Society.
Michelle Smith from Hudson Islands Land Trust, and I will be the secretary from
Greg Swansea, Irvington Land Trust.
Speak up, please, for those old folks up here.
My name is Joyce Greenberg, and I am very proud to be on the board of directors of this wonderful platform International Data Center. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Cornelia Rosenblum, I am also on the board of CAPSTAN, and I'm glad you're having this meeting here. It's very important, and we very much want to be part of the Greenway. This is Martin Sullivan,
Colonel Jim Johnson, Executive Director, Hudson River Valley Institute at Marist College. The journal that's on your table is from us, and military history.
Nancy Cozine, board member at CAPSTAN, also on the
Committee of College Hill Park Revitalization Committee, which is doing great in terms of our replanting, and also Upper Landing Institute.
John Rose Slab Sites, Hudson River Valley Natural Heritage Area Site of Special Interest, and the 200-acre John Rose Nature Sanctuary, chock full of Greenway trails.
I'm Tom Dowd. I am coordinating some trails projects at Bard College, and I'm a board member of the Walker Valley Land Trust.
Beth Campuchiaro, the Greenway.
I'm Gregory Perry. I'm co-founder and artistic director of Cosmo.
I'm Beth Lee-Wilcon, president and co-founder of Hudson.
Wow.
Thank you all so much. We're thrilled to have you here.
Okay. Thank you all very much. And the first order of business is, Andy, if you'll come up here, please. We have a heavily engraved certificate here to give you. And it, we're really going to miss you. We really are. And the thing is, and we have something that says here, Hudson River Valley Greenway Communities Council, whereas Andy Kamar was appointed to the council on the 4th day of June 2010 at Putnam County, which is where he operates out of. And Andy was appointed to the Greenway Grants Committee, and you served on that, and you came to every damn meeting. And whereas Andy has provided the citizens of the Hudson River Valley with his time, effort, and knowledge, and whereas Andy is moving to North and has resigned as a member of the Greenway Council, therefore, be it resolved that the joint boards of the Hudson River Valley Greenway do hereby pause in their deliberations to honor and commend Andrew T. Chamar, for his 6 years of dedicated service to the communities and citizens of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, and further resolve that a copy of this proclamation be provided to Andy Chamar of the Greenway as a symbol of appreciation. And now, thunderous applause.
Thank you. It's been my honor to serve on the Communities Council and to really serve with everybody in here, of course, many of whom that have done this since the founding of the Greenway, and I congratulate you, Wint and others, on doing so. So thank you very much.
Okay, and now, see, Joel, you're here. I know you're here. I'm over here. Okay. Joel, Joel is the mayor of this wonderful town of Tivoli, which I hope you paused briefly as you came through, but it's my gosh, that place is great.
It's cute, right?
It really is. Really doing good. Has that hotel always been there?
The hotel has been there for over a century. It's changed hands a few times, especially in the last couple decades, but it's still a hotel right on the corner.
Yeah, would you tell folks a little bit about
I'm going to tell them a bit of things. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Joel Griffith, Mayor of Tivoli, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here to the village this morning. I'm only 14 months into my first term as mayor of my hometown, so I'm somewhat new to the mayor thing, but I'm not new to the village of Tivoli. My father came to teach at Bard in 1968, doubling the size of the philosophy department from 1 to 2. And my parents started a family here in Tivoli in 1974. So I had the rare and wonderful experience of actually growing up in Tivoli. Like some of us, right? Good stuff. It is a biography I'm fiercely proud of, and although I have had the good fortune to travel in many countries on many continents, I've never actually been away from Tivoli for more than a 10-month stretch in 42 years. So I know a lot about this village. I've seen what else is out there. I've chosen to be here, not just because my roots are here, but because Tivoli is an intimate, authentic, and vibrant community. So as a native and mayor, I say please be welcome here in the village today and every day. Thank you very much to our host, Kotzbahn, and thank you, Greenway, for the opportunity to speak this morning And we don't usually get a crowd like this in the village, so I'm going to take the opportunity. Forgive me, but you're a captive audience. Tivoli's had many ups and downs over the years. Some of our ups were thanks to a young mayor named Mark Molinaro, who's not here today, so I'm going to skip the next paragraph with all my jokes from high school. He was 1 year behind me at Red Hook, yeah. But he's, you know, as far as he goes and as high as he goes, he has never forgotten this community. I know he never will, and if you could convey that to him, we'll leave the gags. So many ups and downs, some long, some short, some higher, some lower. Riding the larger trends seen by all of us throughout the Hudson Valley in recent decades, I'm very pleased to tell you that right now the village of Tivoli is in a major up. When I was a kid in 1980, there was one business on our main street. One sleepy candy store and soda fountain where you could get a newspaper, can of beans, toilet paper, cigarettes, beer, and Swedish fish. Next month, when our newest business, a wine and tapas bar named Rojo, opens, it will be the first time in my life that every storefront on the main drag is occupied and open. It's really something to see. Thank you. In addition to our businesses, we have the outstanding Tangent Theater, which for the last 7 years has been confirming Tivoli's reputation as an arts and culture destination with first-rate productions. They are now doing 3 productions a year. And of course, the reputation has long been supported by the Kotzebue International Dance Center, the Hudson Valley's Cultural Park for Dance, which has been right here in Tivoli now for 25 years. And interestingly, I learned today that Greenway is also 25, so you're siblings of a kind. It's appropriate to have this meeting here, I think. So, Little Tivoli, reputed restaurants, handsome shops, first-rate dance, first-rate theater, all within walking distance of the Hudson River and the Tivoli Bays. Could it be better? And, you know, I'm only 14 months in, so I didn't have a whole lot to do with any of that. But Kotzebue and Tivoli are working very hard to maintain this wonderful little trail we have that connects the village core south towards the Tivoli Bays. It starts behind Village Hall, goes along the Kotzebue property, connects to the Tivoli Bays, Bard College, and points south. We are a charming, walkable village. It's nice to be 1 square mile. Kids can actually ride their bikes to the park and back, and the parents aren't worried. In fact, I'm pleased to say that in the last 3 or 4 years, a number of young families have moved to the village, choosing to raise their children here, and as you well know, that is the lifeblood of a community. These are the pieces which, when pulled together, are going to ensure Tivoli's bright and sustainable future. Arts and culture, natural resources, enviable family quality of life. These are the components that, when pulled together, are going to help us go up and stay up. So that's a lot of mayoral boosterism. Maybe it's getting a little flat. I'm going to get a little more interesting now because you're stuck here and you have to listen to it. I'd like to introduce an idea which usually sparks some controversy and discord around here, but it's a Wednesday morning in Tivoli, so let's get real. Among those many future building components that I just mentioned, there was something I didn't mention. Maybe some of you are thinking of it right now. Something that most people around the Hudson Valley say right after they hear the name Tivoli. It's a college town. College town is a stereotype, and it's not always a good one. Like all stereotypes, it puts a cliched picture in the mind and stops thought. Tivoli is a college town, period, full stop. I know about that place. I'm going to offer some comments about Tivoli's college towndom. And remember, I can say this because I grew up here, because my dad taught at the college. I've got a degree from there. I love Bard, but like anyone you really love, you got to be honest about it, right? I've traveled from Sangstacks Lane to Kidd Lane, from Friendship Street to Clay Hill Road, and I can't find a college in Tivoli anywhere. The college is actually 3 miles down the road in the hamlet of Annandale. Now, why would a mayor of a small town, basically on a dead-end road, put a little distance between his little village and the fabulous first-rate college so close? And here's the radical controversial statement. Living next to a college is not an unadulterated boon. There are incalculable economic and cultural benefits, that goes without saying. There is employment, the restaurants fill up, there is vitality for all, and I really, truly mean, and I understand that those things are the good things. They are great, and Tivoli is very fortunate. But ask Burlington, Vermont, ask State College, Pennsylvania, perhaps the village of New Paltz, ask the town of Poughkeepsie, if being a college town is all milk and honey. Here's the truth. In the last 10 to 15 years, Tivoli has been under considerable pressure from the rapid growth of the college. Pressures which unfortunately have often challenged rather than aided the health and success of this village. Yes, the restaurants popped up and filled up, and the landlords did well, but think for a moment how many people in our village own a rental or a restaurant. It's about 20, it's about 4% of the people that live here. For the rest of us, unfortunately, it was the bad stuff. It was noise, late night parties, beer bottles, and worse in your front yard in the morning, village tax dollars going to more police patrols than a village this side would otherwise need, and those patrols focused more on noise and parties than other important enforcement we'd like to do around here, like speeding. And our village became an enticing profit opportunity for slum landlords who could outspend local families and contribute to the expanding number of deteriorating, dumpy properties, which got dumpier and dumpier. The little village of Tivoli, neither our social fabric, services, nor resources could absorb these pressures. A couple of families, and this is the saddest part, literally moved out of certain areas of the village because those streets, those blocks had actually deteriorated so far. And I mean, nothing could be worse for a mayor and a village board than that. It was damaging to the morale of this community, and residents who had been here for decades were wondering if this is what Tivoli had become and what Tivoli was going to stay forever. And around 2009, 2010, things were actually pretty bad. The population of Tivoli is 1,100 souls, and currently, the last few years, we actually have 300 undergraduates renting in the village. So we've got 300 people between 1921 and then 800 other people. In a 1 square mile village, that's a critical mass which has effects. Many of them are wonderful. That's not the problem. It's the parts that aren't. A lot of people don't know this, and I still get attacked when I say this, but Tivoli was suffering for a time. Residents saw their community deteriorating, and when people in the surrounding area throughout the Hudson Valley offhandedly described Tivoli as a college town, it breaks my heart. They didn't mean the good stuff. They meant the bad stuff. They meant noise and garbage and dumpy rentals. And that is a reputation no community can live with. That is where Tivoli was a few years ago. So I have to take the opportunity as a mayor. Part of my job is branding this community. And with all of you here, I want to tell you about those things are changing. Those things are starting to change. I'm pleased to inform you that the village, often in cooperation with the college, but sometimes on our own, in the last 2 years has begun to establish the proper balance for a residential village adjacent to a world-class, thriving, and expanding college. It had to change if Tivoli wasn't going to lose its identity. It had to change for Tivoli to realize its full potential. It had to change for the village to face its challenges and chase its ambitions, and we have some. So while benefiting from the good things about being next to the college, we took the bad things head on, and we have made a shift, particularly this year. I don't want to take up too much time explaining how we did this, but we took it on. Through code enforcement, law enforcement, community outreach, engagement with the administration, and particularly engagement with the student residents in the village, we took it on. And what I, as mayor, want you folks and people all throughout the valley to know about Tivoli today is that if you think we're a college town, you don't know the whole story. If you think we're just a college town, you don't know the whole story. We have a lot more going on here, more and more every year. Being next to Bard is one facet in the shining gem that is Tivoli, but it is not the source of all our luminosity. And if some are going to keep calling us a college town, you know, it is 3 miles. We are the closest place. I can't quite say we're not a college town, but I've made my point. Well, if we're going to be a college town, let's be the college town of bike paths and bookstores and cafes and culture. Let's be a village where faculty and staff can raise families with a 5-minute commute to their work, where students can spend a couple of years growing and charming in a fabulous village that they will always remember, and many of them come back. The proximity to the college needs to be an asset, not a liability, and if you haven't heard in the last few years, Tivoli and Bard are starting to figure this out, because we are overlapping communities, and we are going to be neighbors for a long, long time. So we might as well just figure it out and be good neighbors. But we do need that proper balance, like every college community. The shift is happening just in time for the future of this village and for the greater good of both communities. So, in addition to arts and culture, incredible natural resources, enviable family quality of life, I'm pleased that I can add a healthy relationship to a renowned and dynamic college 3 miles from the village, as one of the special components that's going to help Tivoli have a strong future. And what are we going to do with this? What's going to be in that future? Well, I'd like to tell you about repairing our 78-year-old water and sewer systems, but I've already gone on for a little long. It's going to be a long morning. So I'm just going to tell you about how we're going to build a world-class park right down here on the banks of the Hudson River. The village was established in the late 18th century when two Hoffman brothers came over from Kingston, and they realized that right from where we sit, a stone's throw, is a really great deep water port on the Hudson River. Like many river communities along the Hudson, the railroad and the highways turned us away from the water, and like many Hudson River Valley communities now, we want to turn back to the water for all the obvious reasons that I know people in this room understand. I'm sure most of you have been down to the riverfront. Anybody never been down the hill here to the river? Good. Well, then I don't have to tell you that it is absolutely, unbelievably, enviably beautiful down there. After 25 years of effort with help from a lot of people in this room and your organizations, Scenic Hudson, Greenway, the DEC, the Office of Parks, Department of State, in 2010, the village purchased 2.34 acres of land on the river from CSX. We've got a parcel on the east side and a parcel on the west side. It's a little tricky because we do have these railroad tracks going right through the middle. But we don't want to let that kind of a challenge stop us from having a park there. We envision a beautiful park with picnic and fishing areas, kayak lockers, maybe some floating docks. And because of those tracks, we have to have an aerial pedestrian easement up and over. And that is sort of the big sticking point. People are very concerned about putting a structure in the view shed, but it has to be there. So we better make it an asset. We better make it a piece of art that people want to come see. And it doesn't necessarily just have to get you from east to west. You could spend some time at the top and have a rather incredible viewing terrace of the Catskills, the whole river. So we could ensure, right here in Tivoli, safe public access on the Hudson River that would benefit the village of Tivoli, the town of Red Hook, Dutchess County. We could bring visitors and business into our community. If Little Tivoli can build this park, we will be up and we will stay up. It has been one of the biggest goals of the village board through many trustees and mayors, and it is certainly one of my biggest goals now. But it has been and will continue to be a daunting undertaking for a village as small as Tivoli, run by part-time amateur folks like myself. The momentum has ebbed and surged, not unlike the tides on the river, but we are surging again. With funding from Greenway, we are designing a walkway which will start basically at the Kotzbahn driveway and go down the hill to the river. There is currently no pedestrian avenue there. So we're going to design that, and soon we'll be looking for the funding to construct it. And last summer, the village of Tivoli won a CFA grant to stabilize our shoreline, both the village's property and the railroad. Nice to have a point of common interest with the railroad, but the erosion down there is significant. So with our CFA, we're going to design a shoreline stabilization. We will be able to update the park master plan, work in the latest designs of the overpass, and complete various permits. The preliminary pieces of our park are lining up, but we are still very far from realizing this dream. Tivoli needs to get more individuals and agencies up and down the river to see our vision for this incredible park and help us make it happen. And I know that a lot of people in this room have already visited with me and helped, and we still need your help. But the benefits to the village and the entire region demand that that park be built one day, and not a day too far off. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you heard something about Tivoli that you didn't know when you walked in here this morning. I hope you have a great day, and that you'll come back to Tivoli very soon. Thank you very much.
I'm sure that Leon's going to ask for equal time, but but now we will hear. I mean, you didn't say anything about Kotzbahn, and now we'll hear about Kotzbahn, and that's but those of us who have, I live actually in New York City, but you hear about Kotzbahn, and you can't. I mean, this is one beautiful place. Now, see, Gregory, where are you? You're right here. Yeah. Will you come up and tell us all about it, please?
First, if you don't mind, we will show you a 4-minute film clip. So Ash, if you'll dim the lights. Katzbahn means a playing field in Dutch. Katzbahn is a residence and performance center for the dance industry. We incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 1990, and shortly after came to this beautiful 153-acre property. With encouragement and assistance from numerous individuals, foundations, and organizations, including Dutchess County Planning and Development, the Dutchess County IDA, the County Executive, New York State Empire Development Corporation, Governor Pataki, Senator Saland, Senator Tarky Lombardi, Hudson and Pacific Design, and especially the village of Tivoli, Katzbahn was able to purchase this site and begin a long-term development of a productive dance institution. The film clip that we just showed represents a part of this collaborative accomplishment. These were brief excerpts from the 90-minute documentary American Ballet Theater, A History by Rick Burns for PBS. All the footage shown and most of the dancing in the documentary was filmed in this black box theater. You can notice some of the wood ceilings in the film and the lights. You're sitting right on that spot. During a week-long residency with Steeplechase Films and American Ballet Theater. Last year alone, 19 dance companies with 200 professional dancers were in residence at Katzbahn. Since the completion of this building in 2000 and the 16-room motel-style Dancers Inn in 2002, over 100 new works and productions have been created and previewed here in this studio. These productions were then shown in New York City, and many toured the U.S. and throughout the world. With performances of up to 18 companies each year, Katzbahn has grown to be the leading dance presenter in upstate New York. Katzbahn also invests in the future of dance through education. Our summer training program, Extreme Ballet, is internationally recognized and nationally rated among the top 10 by Dance Magazine. Extreme Ballet brings 120 pre-professional teenage students to live and train here for 9 weeks each summer. Throughout the year, outreach programs go to public schools, and the Academy of Dance has an enrollment of over 80 young students from the community and adjacent areas. Katzbahn is a cultural industry that is fortunate to have found a home in this bucolic environment. This property is zoned for 1 and 2 acre development. 53 acres are already under New York State conservation easement. It is Katzbahn's goal to develop facilities on only the core 18 acres and to preserve the remaining hayfields as permanent open space. In time, we envision the restoration and adaptive reuse of the 19th century Stanford White Music Barn as a visitor center and art galleries. Katzbahn is pleased to be part of the Tivoli community and the economic development of the area. We look forward to ongoing partnerships that will improve public awareness of dance and provide public access to the beauty of this setting in the magnificent Hudson River Valley. After the meeting, please feel free to observe our current company in residence, Christopher Williams Dance. They'll be rehearsing across the lobby in Studio 2. They are working on a new work for the National Opera of Bordeaux. I would like to thank Stefan for initiating this meeting, and I'd like to thank you all for coming to Katzbahn. Thank you.
That's wonderful, because that's the kind of thing that we care a lot about. Our den mother, Sarah, has encouraged conservation easements, and conservation easements have done extraordinarily well in this part of the valley, right?
Absolutely true.
And what a beautiful place, and what a great day, and we're happy to be here. And now we'll get down to something you don't have to hear me then anyway. Is that we go? David, where are you? David Church. Yeah. Okay, David, you're on. David Church is we're just bloody lucky to have people like David Church in charge, because if you weren't doing it, it wouldn't happen. Yeah, but I really mean that. You know?
Well, we tricked you by dyeing our hair white and wearing similar glasses. That's good.
I know you want to move along, so I'll keep the stories limited to 5 or 6. Is that it? I appreciate being here. I apologize I haven't been able to attend recently, but it's a wonderful group. It's great to hear the celebratory work going on in the Hudson Valley and learn about a place I was not familiar with. Mayor, however, I'll admit I'm a proud father of a Bard grad. Perhaps I need to talk to you later about if there's any reputation issues I have associated with her time in Tivoli or not. Okay. But it is great to be here. And we're here with my sidekick, Rob Lane from Regional Plan Association. Rob was the Director of Design there for many years, is now a fellow at Regional Plan. Rob and I have been conspiring for a number of years on providing guidance to local officials and citizen activists and maybe even influence a few people in the development private sector on occasion, Rob, on how to do better development, how to make better communities. We started this collaboration with a charrette or series of community workshops that we invited Regional Plan in to do in Orange County a number of years ago now. We've since morphed that into a series of things. A lot of them have been, the outcome has been printed design guidance and other relative things, including one recently, thank you, at NYSERDA in particular, where we're looking at, we've started to fold in some climate change and resiliency issues, and we're just releasing online, and the print copies will be available soon. I can leave Mark you with a couple. A toolkit that's replacing the Smart Growth Toolkit that's currently hosted by the climate program at New York State DEC. So that's to be released momentarily. But thanks to a grant, another project has blossomed from the Greenway, Barney. And we're finally here to roll out for the first time publicly, I suppose, Rob, right? We've tested it out privately a few times. What we've morphed this into now with support from the Greenway, which is an interactive web-based tool that builds on the series of guidance and design documents that we've been working on off and on for 3 or 4 years. So with that, Rob, we're technically ready?
Yeah. Get into it right now.
We're next to Whitty.
Dave, can you do me a favor? There are 4 copies of the paper manual that maybe we could spread around a little bit. And Mark, I set my timer for 15 minutes, so it's going to go off loudly when
I'll set mine for 10.
If we go over. This is really first of all, thanks for having us here. This is really a beautiful place, and I look forward to coming back up when the topless bar opens. And I'm looking forward to that, Mayor.
I heard you, I'm just ignoring it.
Okay. First of all, just very quickly, I'm from Regional Plan Association, and I won't do a shtick about that. I'll just tell you that we actually, our ambition in the 4th Regional Plan, which is going to be coming out starting in the spring of next year, is to actually have a regional Greenway network. And I want you to know that the Hudson Valley Greenway is very much a model for us in terms of its governance and what its accomplishment. I want to thank, again, the Greenway, acknowledge them and our partners at PACE, John Nolan in particular, and the Lincoln Institute, and many others who I'm not going to try to mention now, including John Clark and Duchess, and especially David, who actually this idea of doing a design guide, a booklet, was really started with him. I'll say the idea was for the audience for it is for citizen planners, the many people who sit on the board, planning boards and village boards, who are the ones who have to wrestle with this. It's not branded in any way. I mean, to David's credit and a little bit of RPA's, the website, which I'm going to show you in a moment, is not particularly branded as an Orange County or RPA product. And our goal is that all of these organizations, all of you, will help us link to this thing so that this resource can be spread far and wide. Before I do a kind of a brief demo about this is the home page of the website, I want to talk briefly about the Community Design Manual, the paper version, because the structure of the website very much mirrors this. And the origin of the idea of having a set of design details, we looked up all these design manuals. There's no shortage of design manuals, but very few of them actually locate the details, these design details and best practices in real places, and they don't say very much about implementation. So our goal, both with the paper document and the website interpretation of it, was to make it possible for people to enter this at 3 levels. To either think about different kinds of places where they live, to think about different kinds of best practices, or the different kinds of tools and actions. And so the booklet, the paper booklet, is organized in these 3 big sections: place types, details and best practices, and actually implementation tools. And for each place, there is a spread that describes sort of the wrong way and the right way that one might go about doing it, and a set of diagrams that call out and locate where details, these best practices, might actually be located in these place types, so that citizen planner types and professionals and private developers would know where these best practices actually work if you're trying to fix a place. The details are organized around a pretty standard idea about green infrastructure, about connectivity, what we call links, and about complete communities, which is mixed-use development. And then there's a part of the booklet that deals with the implementation tools, both the sort of plans, the regulations, and the administrative actions that you could take if you want to implement one of these best practices. And when we did the paper manual, of course, it was possible by using the detail numbers to navigate between these different sections. That was sort of the link. These best practices would enable you to go from types of places to best practices to implementation tools. And people said, listen, this is set up, this is like conceptually to be a website. You have to turn it into a website. And that's where the funding from Orange County and the Greenway came in. So that's the end of the slideshow. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website and show you what it looks like and sort of noodle around in it a little bit. So this is actually the website homepage. You can see, as I described here, you can enter it in several ways. You can either decide to fix a place, do it right, which are the best practices. Here, let me go back for a second. I didn't want to hit that quite yet. Or you can see case studies. You can see examples of places that were best practices of some kind or another. And you can enter it through a series of frequently asked questions if you want. So let's say you're from a town and you are interested in fixing a place. Well, what we've done is, through these kind of charrettes and things, we've divided the world up into these 6 kinds of places. Of course, this oversimplifies the world, but we understood that people can conceptually think about these different kinds of places. So we'll take a familiar one, downtowns. And when you click on it, what it does is it takes you to a home page that describes the kinds of characteristics that you would find there. It uses the same logo that the paper manual does. It describes what these places should be like, what we should aspire to. And then it shows, as I described before, as it does in the paper manual, 2 models. It shows you what kind of conventional development looks like. And you can see here listed on the left the various problems with it, parking ratios, zoning ideas. Or it shows you a diagram of the preferred development pattern. And with each of those, there's a kind of aerial rendering that also shows you what the preferred versus conventional pattern is. And then as you scroll down, you see, well, what would it take to implement this? And you can either look at the sort of green infrastructure and natural details, you can look at things that relate to links and connectivity, or you can look at things that have to do with mixed use. And when you scroll down, there are these principles that you use, and again, here's where the details come into play. So let's say you decide that, well, one of the things you want to do is to provide for flexible use and mixed use. That takes you to a page that describes why that should matter to you, and further links to a series of details that you can find, and it's quite a deep library of details, or related details that tell you the other kinds of related things that you might do if your goal is to create these kind of beautiful communities. Similarly, if you were interested in green infrastructure, then you might click on that one and scroll down, look at these best practices, and again, click on a set of details. So if what you want to do is to landscape parks and plazas, then again, it'll take you to a series of details and related details that can show you how to do it. And remember, those details are located in these diagrams, so you can see where you might apply those. Finally, let's say that you, well, not quite finally, but almost finally, until the timer goes off. Let's say you want to enter just not from a particular place, type, a corridor or downtown or a new neighborhood, but from a set of best principles, which, as I said, we've organized in terms of nature, links, and communities. So again, let's click on the nature one. And what it does is it takes you to a home page where it has a set of these best principles: protect natural and scenic resources, create the urban forest, create linked open spaces. And within those, these set of principles. So it shows you, again, and here again are the details. Those same details appear under these best practices. And you can go and click on, oh, there's the timer, so I'm going to wrap up, a series of details that show you how you can achieve that best practice. And then the final way you can enter, if you want, are through a set of examples, case studies of best practices. And I'll just pick a local example, Warwick Grove, and you can go and see how they did it. And again, it interprets that that case study in terms of nature, links, and communities, and describes the tools and actions that it would take to get there. One thing that's important to note is that on the tools and actions, when you go to one of them, it not only describes the detail, but it takes you, it takes you to the tools that it would take to do it. So let's say you want to traffic calm roads, for example. When you scroll to the bottom of that page, it describes the kinds of planning tools, regulatory tools, and administrative actions you might take on. And when you go to them, it describes not just what it is, but the issues and the challenges associated with it. So I'm going to end there and just say that this is obviously a very deep thing. And I think the key idea is, and you can see here we have this thing, submit your idea today. I think the idea is that for this to be a kind of a wiki of best practices. And for people to look at this, because inevitably they will say, oh, well, you really should have had this detail, or I have an even better detail for you, or a really good case study I'd like you to have in this website. So our goal is for you all and our partner organizations to distribute the link to this and to invite people to kind of join this community, to kind of build a web-based community around these best practices. And I think I'll end there. I think that's it. So thank you again for the Greenway. And I really look forward to getting your all's reaction to it and helping us share this resource. Oh, if I have time, I don't know.
Absolutely. That was 10 minutes, so you still have 5 minutes for questions.
If I have time. Well, I counted Dave's 5 minutes Dave wasted.
Does that mean I get 5 more minutes to waste?
You have 2.
2 minutes of waste.
Yeah, no, please.
Questions, comments? Rob, we should say, are people getting on their little smart machines right now and trying to look at this? So
well, yeah, well, okay, spoiler alert.
Spoiler
alert. We were, yeah, I just want to say this was to be the grand, releasing of this. Within a week, I really think within a week we'll go, that we discovered there are a handful of image credit things that we didn't quite resolve that we want to resolve before we literally make it live. But we will broadcast to everybody on your, or have you through your email broadcast to everyone. We really think within a week, maybe 2 weeks, it will be live. So I apologize for that. I was hoping this could be that moment, but.
Today, although I should say today, the toolkits are posted at both RPA and Orange County through the planning department as PDFs. And if somebody wants to noodle with these in a more and have an editable version, we could share those as well.
If I could just ask on one
Yeah.
thing. This looks terrific. I think it's great. Do you do anything with the use of regenerative design on how to deal with water and wastewater treatment systems using sustainable practices?
Not yet. We have, like I said, we have a lot of stuff about green infrastructure, kind of deep, the more familiar, maybe physical green infrastructure stuff. We don't have very much on that, but we're welcome to. We're happy to think about it. We got to a certain point where we just, we're boiling the ocean kind of thing.
Yeah, we do have Rob, I should say, we did with an estuary grant, as part of the content of New York State DEC Estuary Program grant, we did do a watershed design guide. It was primarily for people getting active in watershed associations and organizations like that. So there's content. We still need to populate the content on this, so we have that in some form, at least in its early version.
That's great, because that's one of the challenges for small communities is how to deal with they don't have sewage treatment plants.
Right.
Sure.
How they possibly do that in a way that encourages reuse of water systems. Thank you.
Yes.
So I've been familiar with their design book for several years now, and I really heartily recommend that everybody take it back and make sure that it's in all the communities, in all the counties, and spread through, because it's an amazing resource, and it's only getting better and better as it gets more active.
Yeah, and I think Ulster County actually, again, I just want to give some credit to Dave for being willing to unbrand it, because it was for a long time the Orange County Design Manual. And we just recognized that people would say, well, then it's not for us. And Dave was kind of willing to kind of unbrand it and just make it the community design manual. And for our other nonprofit competitors like Scenic Hudson who are helping us distribute this, when somebody clicks on it, it's not going to take them to the RPA website. It will take them to this website. And I think now that it's a web-based thing, it'll be possible to get this out to many more people.
Well, thank you, Rob and Dave. I just think it's a really compelling tool because for most of the development is guided by zoning ordinances and what you need to do are buried in text, or it doesn't really tell you what to do at all. And this makes good design accessible. This enhances and makes sure that development can happen in the right way. And this will, be at the planning board meeting for many years to come. So
I hope so. And again, I welcome like I said, no matter, it's always going to be incomplete. And you may see things that you disagree with. Please, the idea is to let us know, and we'll try to make it better. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Greenway.
We're so darn lucky. I'm supposed to be nonpartisan about things. This is a virtue that I do not always embrace, and you're about to hear an example of it, which is this long-sought and terribly interesting notion of joining trails together so one can have a unified trail system, New York City to Albany, basically, what we're talking about, on both sides of the river. And in the lifetime of someone in this room, probably, that will be on both sides. But I think we're going to get it on just one side. Well, the thing to do, I guess, is to hear from David on this. And if the notion of Greenway Trail Connection Study, which is what Jeff Olson is really working on, David was talking about, and John Bean, and Jeff, if you come up and tell us where you are and what's going on, and it really is one of the most exciting things I think that happened since Donald Trump. Who knows? But anyway.
Barney, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
I'm going to tee this up for John to start, and then I'm going to waste the rest of the 15 minutes. So let me just do this. John, start us off. And I just want to say thank you, everyone. This is, in your lifetime, you get to work on a handful of things. It's exciting, and we're thrilled to be here. So, John, kick us off.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. And you always wonder how to start and wrap your head around something like this. And there's a concept or a thought that I want to share, and that's a thought of gratitude. And if you think about it, it's something that we sometimes forget, but these things that we are here today, this art center, we're grateful for the vision that's in front of us. The Greenway, the trails, the concepts, there's kids, there's people that are grateful that don't even know it when they walk on these trails, and it changes their lives, you know. So we've been lucky to work on some of these projects, these trails. In 1991, when the Greenway legislation started, there were just a trickle of trails in the Hudson River Valley. Right now, it's a torrent of trails. You have the water trail. You can hike, you can bike. Westchester County has an incredible system. Right now, as we speak, they're building a trail system on the Champlain Canal. And all this is happening as we speak. And so right now, I think Barney and the Greenway, this organization has led the thought of creating a Greenway system, and it is real, and it's happening, and you can do it today, and it is adding value to lives. And personally, when I take my kids up in the Hudson Valley North, and we planned a system there and created with the state and Open Space Institute a 17-mile greenway that connects the Adirondacks down into Saratoga County. And you can bring your kids there, and they can walk and hike and bike and literally walk across the Hudson because it's so shallow. Don't think that doesn't have a huge impact on people's lives. And so what you're doing here in Tivoli, Mayor, and with the college making this trail, don't think that's not going to have a great impact on those kids and those students, and might be a game changer for them. So with that, this work is important. We're on a roll with this Greenway Trail, and I think we're going to get this done, Barney, and hopefully in our lifetime. All right, Jeff?
All right. Thank you, John. I'm just curious, how many people here have been working on the Greenway since its beginning 25 years ago? Thank you. And how many of the rest of us are going to be here for the next 25 years still working on it? Good. That's really what this is all about, because when we think of what's been accomplished and really some truly extraordinary things, I just want to mention that Sarah and I are not related, although it is possible. My entire family, since they got off the boat at Ellis Island, both sides, have always lived in a county that borders the Hudson River. So this is a place that's near and dear to my heart. I grew up as a young kid down by the George Washington Bridge with my grandmother taking us swimming in the 1960s. That explains everything. Okay? Water quality wasn't quite the same then that it is now. But that this vision of this connected Hudson River Valley is something that goes long before our time. It's going to continue long after we're gone. The wonderful thing is that we are, as so many people here have spent their lives doing, putting that in place in so many interesting ways. The project that we're working on right now, and I mean it, this is very, very rare in a lifetime of working on this stuff to get a chance to do what we're doing here today. We are just in the early phases of putting together a plan that will look at what's been accomplished, help promote that, encourage more use of the trail system, and also look forward into that next 25 years. The existing facilities go back, and the map that you see on the left, I found this in my archives recently. This is dated May of 1993. I have the long original in my office. And I believe it was Russell Robbins, myself, Ivan Vamos, Karen Vatava from New York City, sat down in a room, just a few of us, and sort of penciled out on a AAA map what it would be like if we could someday create a Greenway from New York City to Montreal, including the Hudson River Greenway, connect that to the Erie Canal, create a truly border-to-border system. And it's happening. I mean, really, you look at the pieces that we thought were impossible in 1993 when this map was drawn. The west side of Manhattan, you know, what it is right now, in 1993 was the crumbling ruins of the West Side Highway. There was nothing remotely like a trail being built at that point in time. The entire New York City Greenways plan had just been released. The ideas that we look at now and take for granted that they've already been made to happen, again, thanks to everyone here in this room, show us that when we do look forward into the future, that it is very much possible. The existing facilities we have mapped, and in fact, Laura's got some of the very large format maps. We have a meeting later this morning, or I'm sorry, early this afternoon. We're going to meet with communities from throughout the southern half of the valley. Tomorrow in Albany, we're meeting with communities from the northern half. So this is a very busy couple days, still gathering input, listening, trying to understand what's out there and what might be out there for the future. So we've got those maps in geographic information system format for the first time. Some of you may be surprised that the existing data is not very complete and that we're having to tease out from data sets what's a hiking trail, what's part of an on-road bike route, what modern planners might now call a Greenway trail is very different than what we would have talked about in the early 1990s. So we are sorting all that out. It's been an interesting challenge, and it's always easier for me to take the credit for the work that people like Laura and John's folks are doing. When we look at walking right now, we've got a range of true hiking trails and trails that you think of traditionally, sections of the Appalachian Trail, the Long Path, the crossing at Bear Mountain Bridge, one of my favorite spots. But to me, the sort of center point and the moment that tells us that we are heading into this great new future is the walkway over the Hudson Bridge. Many of the people here in this room I know were involved in that project. And it's one that goes back to my early days. Some of you may know I worked at New York State DOT and was the Bike and Pedestrian Program Manager for a bunch of years. My first month, I was with Ivan Vamos, who was then Deputy Parks Commissioner, going down to New York City for the first of the New York City Greenways meetings. And he said, do nothing with that bridge, ever. So anybody comes to you, wants money for that bridge, we don't have that much money, we're never going to have that much money, and there's nothing we can possibly do. And Ivan's an optimist, and if you know Ivan, love the idea of seeing this bridge get done. It's there now. And I'm very happy to have a daughter in college at New Paltz. I don't know, Mayor, if you're hearing from your counterparts or if the New Paltz folks are any noise ordinance violations, please let me know. And I spent a lot of time down there. And I talked to the students on campus and her friends and peers. They love going out onto the bridge. It's one of the places that become, to them, it's an assumption. It's always been this way. It's this wonderful thing that's there, as John just said. That legacy is already happening now. And I think that's, Barney, you've said this to us several times, that that's one of the things we need to communicate, that there are great elements of that legacy that are already there. And just we need more people to know more about it and to use them more often. The trail and two bridges that Scenic Hudson's been working on. Many projects like that from a walking and hiking perspective that have been in process for a long time, and you can walk the valley from end to end. Biking, I go back to my days with State DOT when we developed the statewide bike route system. We have a lot of local projects going on. Most of the biking at this point is some limited amounts of shared use paths and on-road biking routes, which are going to address an audience of some cyclists and some long-distance riders who will do those kinds of things, but not necessarily the mainstream of large numbers of people getting out and doing it until they feel that those facilities are safer and easier to use. A lot of that work already going on, and it's, again, very, very exciting to see that in process. Canoeing and kayaking, I mean, Scott, I don't wish I knew what to say. When the beginnings of the water trail idea were first being talked about, people just didn't even know what a water trail was. And this is the signature water trail project in the world. Scott just gave us all copies of the map, and he also told us we can take 2 weeks off and paddle the whole thing this year. So we're welcome to go do that. I've been getting out to do little pieces of it, but would certainly like to be able to do a lot more. And that adds a whole nother dimension. So we've already got an existing hiking trail network. We've got a primarily on-road but existing bike route system that's out there, and we have the water trail. Those are three major elements that now do connect the valley end to end. Part of the task that we're going to go through is illustrating those concepts, cleaning up some of the mapping and data that's behind what's in those data sets so that people can use them, and using those as a framework to look to what the next 25 years might be. We have an online wiki map if your folks are not already using this, similar to the design manual that you guys just presented. If you want to today or even now during the meeting, if you have an idea about an existing project that your community is working on or a dream that you've had about a project you wish you were working on, now is a very, very good time in these next couple of weeks to communicate. Many of your local planners and others will be at the meetings later this afternoon in Beacon and then tomorrow in Albany, but feel free to go onto that map. As long as you don't tweak it, we were in the midst of running New York City Bike Share a couple of years ago, and there was a map like this of where station sites could be, and somebody in Portland, Oregon kept getting one of the dots, and the map expanded. They hacked in and kept saying Portland, Oregon. So we don't want anybody doing that. If you can keep us in the geography of the valley, we'll be greatly appreciative. But that kind of input right now is very helpful because there's a lot of projects out there that local entities are working on, public, private, nonprofit, that may not have filtered to the level of the rest of us even knowing that they're going on. And I'll describe a couple of those in a minute. When we look at, as Barney said, the most likely option in our current lifetime may be a trail that skips across the river a couple times builds upon existing sections that are there, and needs some missing links in it now to create the kind of shared use, multiple use pathway system that would allow people of all ages and abilities, everything from ADA accessible up to long distance touring cyclists, runners, joggers, to have that kind of connected system. There are large pieces of that already happening, and most of you know about many of them. What we're looking at is now for the first time comprehensively mapping all that throughout the entire valley. We are also learning about pieces of this that are new, that some of you may be hearing about even today for the first time. Projects like the Big Boom Trail, which my class at UAlbany has been working on up near Moreau, and the turn of the river in New York was called the Big Boom because that's where all the logs came down out of the Adirondacks. And it turns out that there was a boom there that captured those logs on the way to the mill. And part of the old logging road that brought logs from Moreau and the Greenway that John worked on with National Grid is still there. If you're up in our neighborhood and you get up the Northway at all, and you get just past, when you're crossing the Hudson, look down to your right. And if you look quick enough, you'll see a line through the woods. It looks like an old railroad track. It turns out, in fact, it's the original logging road. Parts of the Big Boom are still there. And that community is working on that trail project. The KSS Trail in Rensselaer County, which is a single-line utility corridor owned by National Grid, could actually be a 20-plus mile missing link in this section of Greenway. And again, that project's just starting, thanks to a Greenway grant, by the way, one of the grants that is provided by the Greenway. That project is starting to have a little bit more momentum. So we're hopeful to find enough of those connected pieces to begin to realize the idea that in addition to the existing hiking, biking, and water trail, that there is this next 25-year future shared use path as well. When we look at the next two pieces of this, which the ultimate dream, and again, Barney, thank you for continuing to keep us seeing that, is the ultimate goal would be that kind of trail, both sides of the river, north to south.
Don't worry, I'm not going to give up.
He's not giving up. And we're not going to let you, so even if you wanted to. We know that that's something that's longer term. But also, I want to put this in context of what, in my career, I've seen. The United States in 1991, when the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, or ICE-T, was passed, written largely by our Senator Moynihan, the United States was spending $4 million a year as a country on these kinds of facilities. Does anybody know what this year's number is? Begins with a B. We're up to $1 billion a year from $4 million, okay? So now let's look forward into the future, because how many people live here in a community now that wants a facility like this built? How many would say your community would like to see this kind of thing? Mayor just talked about his park, right? Every community. Opinion polls are being done that show that every mayor, all the elected officials, every member of Congress had a positive perspective on bicycling and trails, surprisingly. Tactics of how to do it, we may not all necessarily agree on, but this is something that has reached a level that I never imagined I would see. The levels of support, and I'll say it's in part due to things like Citibank sponsoring bike share in New York has been a big image changer, and I thank them very much for that. But it's also the Dyson family helping to make the walkway over the Hudson Bridge happen. It's major foundations all over the country, public, private, and nonprofit sector working together to make this happen. And this is really where the Greenway comes in and plays such a absolutely critical role. And I'm going to wrap up and we'll take questions about the plan at this point. The role that you play as the convener and as I'm a soccer player, so center midfield, okay? You guys are the thing that makes it all connect together. And it won't connect together any other way. And the range of partners that are out there are growing. And the momentum that's been built by this first 25 years is now leading us into that next generation. And the projects that people thought were impossible 25 years ago are possible. And we're going to see them happen. I have complete faith that what we're doing will be made to happen. So what our task is to do in wrapping up this project is do more listening. That's this afternoon and tomorrow, 2 big listening sessions, the north and south of the river, if you will. Continue to take information from that wiki map, and then have our team illustrate this graphically and in ways that people can see the wonder of traveling the Hudson Valley, walking, bicycling, and by paddlecraft, and then the possible future of where we can get to. And to use that as a tool for future meetings like this and for the ongoing work of the Greenway to help make what we dream to become reality. So if you have any questions about the plan or the process that's going on right now, John and I will be very happy to answer them. If they're tough questions, Laura will answer them. or Mark or some of the staff. But I just want to close by saying thank you. I mean, it is rare to get a chance to work on something so meaningful. I hope that's what motivates all of us, is that we know that the thing we're working on is a good thing. So thank you.
Public meetings coming up, too.
Yes. Chairman just wanted me to mention public meeting this afternoon down in Beacon, public meeting tomorrow in Albany at the Public Library tomorrow afternoon. Both are from 2 to 4. Some of you may actually be joining us later this afternoon. And also that online input form, so if people want to send us questions or comments. We're really looking to make sure at this point we've captured the range of ideas that are out there, so when we find what really is a gap, we know that it hasn't been thought of yet. So, questions or comments?
We continue to get calls from Mr. Holly. We refer him to you to incorporate some ideas into the
Yes, of course. And I also want to acknowledge, Steve just stood up. Where'd he go? Steve Yarbeck, just walk out of the room. There's so many people here in the room that have have been working on this forever. And I just want to make sure we do acknowledge that most of what we're talking about isn't necessarily completely new. It's just a way of finally putting all that in one place. So when Steve comes back in, we'll thank him again.
And you put that very well, Jim.
This is fantastic. The one thing I know Scenic Hudson did with the bridge over the walkway over the Hudson was they commissioned, or maybe they did themselves, I don't know, an economic impact study. And I'm wondering, this may not be within your scope, but it seems to me that one of the important things to do is to make people understand that what the collateral economic development benefits are of this initiative, and because that resonates with a lot of people. And it's a very real, the economic value of open space and these kinds of amenities.
We can't necessarily do that specific study for this corridor, but we have so many good examples, and here's one for you to leave the room with, and one of my recent favorites. If this one's once in a lifetime, that one's once in 10 lifetimes. I got a phone call 6 years ago from the head of the Walton Family Foundation in Bentonville, Arkansas. How many people here have been to Bentonville? How many people think going to Bentonville would be an amazing place for trails and greenways? This is the home of Walmart, right? And this is recorded, so hi guys, I'm going to talk about you. So I got the call 6 years ago. In that time, they built a 35-mile spine greenway connecting all the communities in 2 counties, north and south, from Fayetteville north to Bentonville. They've added 6 mountain bike parks along the way. The project was built with a public-private partnership, both from the Family Foundation and a Tiger grant. It was about a $30 million project. There's been $120 million worth of new economic development along that corridor. Every town has adopted a new bike, pedestrian, and complete streets plan. Every school has done a walk and bike to school plan. They are hosting the International Mountain Biking World Summit in November. They've built one of the great art museums on the planet, if you get a chance to see the Crystal Bridges Museum, designed by Moshe Sadfi. $1 billion building with $1 billion art collection and $1 billion endowment. That's how serious they are. That museum is surrounded by hundreds of acres laced with the most beautiful single-track mountain biking you can imagine, all built by hand, all extraordinarily well designed. Their high schools and middle schools all have mountain bike racing teams now, and they have 500 bikes available for students to use as part of their gym classes and have trained all their PE teachers to do so. University of Arkansas just built a new LEED-certified dorm building directly on the trail. They have 5 new microbreweries just in Fayetteville alone, along the corridor. All that's happened in 5 years from a single phone call, at least from my perspective. I know there were people thinking about it before that. And it's just been one of those things, you look at that and think, if that can happen, and with all due respect to our friends in Bentonville, this is the Hudson Valley. What we've got in this valley makes they can't repeat what we've got. We have got stuff that's so much better. And if anything, those of you that know me, including my own family, would say, Dad's not the most patient person in the world. I look at this stuff and I want to see it done yesterday. And so the economic development and the public-private partnership that makes these projects happen is so significant now that we're seeing trail-oriented development become more of a term than transit-oriented development. The potential is huge. I know, Mayor, you're talking about your projects here locally. This building proves everything that we're talking about, that we can make these things happen. But this is the Hudson Valley. I think we need to take that project and make sure nobody ever talks about it again. and that the rest of the world should be talking about the Hudson River Greenway. Other questions or comments? You can tell that we enjoy this. So.
Well, I was at the Walkway on Monday for a press event, and that place, like no other, reminds you of the possibility of the big idea. And this is our big idea. And doing this trail from New York City to the Adirondacks would be transformative for the Hudson River Valley. It would enhance economic opportunity. It would enhance our environment. And if the Walkway teaches us anything, that big ideas can happen, and we need all of your support to make it a reality.
Any other last questions? I know you got a long agenda today, and I do apologize. We have to leave before the end of the meeting. It's because we're going to Beacon for the second half today. So, somebody give me the location. I'm sorry.
Long Dock. The River Center at Long Dock Park in Beacon?
River Center today. Sorry, I didn't have my phone. Without my phone, I can't even tell where I am now. So.
Mark, we're going to ask you back after, perhaps in October, maybe just if there are any other questions, because by that time, we'll really be getting down to this is enormously exciting.
Thank you.
And we've obviously, Mark, you've obviously selected the right group to do it. And so having said something nice, leave.
That's it. And don't get in the way of lunch. Thank you very much.
Okay. Because of train schedules and my slot, we're a little bit late, so let's move quickly. Agenda review, forget it. The minutes we have, I need a motion for 2 sets of minutes. March 23rd and June 2nd.
I so move.
Okay. And a second?
Second adoption
Okay.
of those minutes.
All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, Mark, you're on.
All right. Megan Taylor, who is the Executive Director of the Regional Economic Development Council in Mid-Hudson, and also the Regional Director of Empire State Development in the Mid-Hudson region, is going to take 5 minutes and talk a little bit about this round of the consolidated funding application and provide a little perspective on the downtown revitalization initiative.
Yes, and I'm going to do a quick 5 minutes, I promise, Mark. So just to give you some perspective, we're going into the 6th round now of the consolidated funding application, and I just wanted to share some numbers with you because I think they're pretty staggering and really speak to the transformative nature of what Governor Cuomo tried to start with the regional council. So since 2011, when the governor created the RADCs, $3.9 billion has been awarded or committed to support over 4,100 projects statewide, which have led to the creation and retention of about 200,000 jobs. Specifically in the Mid-Hudson, we've funded around 460 projects to the tune of around $390 million. So when we talk about money being available, this is really the mechanism to access those dollars. So speaking about this round specifically in round 6, so in 2016, there really does continue to be an unprecedented amount of funding being directed to the regional council process. So with more resources available, it will lead to opportunities to increase the economic growth and quality of life in all of the 10 regions throughout the state. The regional councils will be competing for funds from 3 different sources this year. Up to $175 million in ESD capital grants, $70 million in Excelsior tax credits, and both of which all 10 regions are eligible for. The second bucket of money is over $510 million in additional funding from various state agencies, which again, all 10 regions will be eligible for. And then the third, which has everyone's attention right now because it is very time sensitive, is $10 million, which will be awarded to one selected community in each of the 10 regions throughout the state. So again, there's $750 million in state resources available from 30 different agencies from 30 different programs across 11 different state agencies. So again, many people self-select themselves out of the CFA process before it even starts. It is a bit of an onerous process in terms of the length of the application and the the information that's requested of you, but I cannot stress enough that there really is something for everyone there. So if there are questions about anything, please give my office a call or talk to me afterwards. There usually is a way that we can find some available resources for you. So I know Mark wanted me to talk really quickly about the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. So this is one new aspect of this year's REDC efforts. It's really focused on our urban centers. I know my colleague from the Department of State, Jamie, is here with me, who's been absolutely fantastic helping us. So each REDC is being charged to nominate one downtown, and each downtown will focus on $10 million of concentrated funding. So the community should be positioned as ripe for development and have the ability to capitalize on recent job growth to attract tomorrow's workforce. Each downtown will have an expert planning firm to help build their strategic investment plan and identify projects to implement that plan. And then also CFA projects will receive priority points if they advance downtown revitalization, regardless of the designated community. So for those, just in terms of time frame, the downtown revitalization community will be announced sometime towards the end of June. We right now are in the ranking and application process for the Mid-Hudson, and the CFA deadline, which is extremely important, this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say right now. CFA deadline is 4 p.m. on July 29th, 4 p.m. sharp. Not 401, not 402, 4 p.m. sharp. I can't begin to tell you how many times we have to say it, and we still get 401 applications and can't receive them. So if any of you have any questions about the DRI or the consolidated funding application, I will be here not much after 12, I'm sorry, but you definitely know where to find me, and if there's anything, just let me know.
Where do they find you?
So our offices are at 33 Airport Center Drive, right at Stewart Airport, but I can leave some of my cards here as well. Feel free to call me or email me, absolutely. Anybody have any questions? Or?
That was excellent, it really was, and then I love it when she says, $1 million here, $1 million there.
It's not my checkbook.
It's more focused, and that could add up to real money.
It does.
And then if you look at, and we all have a copy of Jim Johnson's journal here, Hudson River Valley Review, Saving Olana. The first piece in there, David Church, and how Olana almost didn't happen because they couldn't make $500,000. And well, you spill $500,000.
We did.
Every Thursday.
Yes, I try not to spill it.
Thank you very much.
No problem, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
All right, now comes the fun part.
Okay.
The quick fun part. All right, the next few items E through F, I will ask the chairman to just take one vote on the following items.
Yes.
We have been plugging away on the Greenway Compact for a number of years. The village of Highland Falls is our latest Greenway Compact community, so we're pleased to welcome them into the Greenway Compact. Under David Church's leadership, communities in Orange County are really leading the way in planning, and this is another example. The next items are the fun stuff we do, is give away money. These are the Greenway grants. The first grant is to the village of Highland Falls, our newest compact community, and this is to do a feasibility study for their waterfront, to transform their waterfront, what is now a marina, to see if they can turn it into a community destination for public access. That's for $10,000. The next one is to the village of Irvington in Westchester County. This is for implementation of their Main Street plan, and I'd like to thank Larry Schopfer from the village of Irvington, who is the village manager, is here to accept the award. Thank you, Larry. The next grant is for the village of Mount Kisco in Westchester County. And Ed Brancotti is also the village manager of the village of Mount Kisco, and this is to create a historical hiking trail loop through the village to connect people with the history and the natural environment of the village of Mount Kisco. The next grant, and all of these grants are to villages, so I guess as the mayor pointed out earlier, it does take a village and sometimes a school to make a great community. But the next grant is to the village of New Paltz in Ulster County, and this is to do an intermunicipal town-village master plan, and that's for $7,000. I don't know if Dave Gilmore made it here today. Oh, Mary Etta, from, who's also involved in this comprehensive planning project, but is also the chair of Historic Huguenot Street. Thank you so much for coming here and for your leadership in New Paltz and for getting the town and the village to work together. I know lots of things about New Paltz, and I know how harmonious everything is in New Paltz. And the final grant is the village of Warwick in Orange County, and this is for a comprehensive plan and visioning update, and that grant is for $10,000.
All right, so now, are there any questions or comments? This has been carefully reviewed by by our grants committee. The meeting was by phone earlier this week, was it? I guess. Anyway, it was, and it we are grateful, as always, to have somebody like Mark who understands the planning process and has gone over these very carefully. So that if there's no questions, now I'd like to have a vote with 5 grants, total $43,000. Yes, question?
Conservancy members cannot vote on this council package.
Right, it's only council members.
If I could, I would have to recuse myself in the most harmonious way possible as a resident of the town village. But so only council members are voting on this. Okay.
That is true. That is true. And then he is at, was $43,500, right, Mark? Yeah, $43,500. I would like to have a motion, please. Got one motion, second?
Second.
Second, okay. And a question, comments?
I just think that the Highland Falls project is one of the most exciting we've ever had. I mean, it's going to provide access at a critical point for lots of people, and it's wonderful.
If Winnie likes it, it can't be all bad, all right? Now, okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you very much, thank you, Win. And Mark, see, we are now, have completed, because we had Andy, and Kevin, it's yours.
Okay. Okay, now we're short on time, so I'll try to move through the agenda very quickly. So I'm going to call the Greenway Conservancy meeting to order. And the first item, we had one earlier, but we have a separate one now, which is a Moen recognition. So I actually wanted to grab the plaque over here from Scott. Where's Dan?
He's right there.
Hello, Daniel. Why don't you come on up? We wanted to present just a wonderful volunteer in the Valley and make sure that we all take a moment to recognize some outstanding service. And this, of course, is to Daniel P. McLaughlin, Jr. for his dedication and commitment to the Hudson River Valley Greenway and his tireless efforts over the last 13 years to create and promote the Hudson River Valley Greenway Water Trail, presented this 8th day of June 2016 by the Hudson River Valley Greenway. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank everyone here. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be able to work with the Greenway, and especially with the Great Hudson River Paddle. I think that has been a real big focus on the Hudson River Valley throughout the world. We've had people come from New Zealand, South Africa, all kinds of responses, and they all know about the Hudson River, and they bring it home. It's been an example throughout the United States, and we're also a national water trail. So it's all been through the Greenway. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to have a brief discussion of the Conservancy Trail Grant Program.
Yes, the news of the Trail Grant Program, we're going to have $250,000 to award this year. That's up from $60,000. Thank you, Governor Cuomo and the legislature from giving us that money to award. We will be announcing the grant program within the next 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that announcement.
That's great. And now we need to actually take 2 votes that are important. The first is to get, from the Conservancy Board, to get approval for the 3-year website project for a $15,000 pass-through, and this is for the estuary program.
The Hudson River National Estuary and Research Reserve.
Very good. And so I'd like to call for a motion on that from someone on the Conservancy. Okay. First and second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Okay. And the second one, and more important because it covers the whole year ahead, is our annual budget adoption. And I know that there's a lot to cover in that, but do you want to give a brief overview?
Well, briefly, we have a melded budget, our federal National Heritage Area budget and our Greenway Conservancy budget. You can see the budget numbers are relatively self-explanatory. We have included the proposed budget numbers for this upcoming year. If there are any questions, please let me know. I'll have you know that the Greenway Conservancy's Finance Committee has reviewed it, including our treasurer, Jane McLaughlin. and they've all thought that the budget is reasonable for the next upcoming state fiscal year. And many thanks to Scott Keller and his prowess with Excel spreadsheets for making all this work.
Yeah, and I want to second that. Scott is just amazing. He's a wizard with Excel, but also keeping an eye on everything that we do, and we would be lost without you at sea. So with that, let's perhaps call for a motion on the budget for the coming year. Someone from the Conservancy? Okay, Jennifer, second. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the budget is adopted. Sorry for the brisk meeting, but I know we're trying to get there by noon. So I think that brings the Conservancy portion of the agenda to a close. And so now we're up to the National Heritage Area.
Right, well, two updates with the Heritage Area. Our main update is that we are getting ready to launch our National Heritage Area Guidebook. You all have a postcard. The retail price for this is going to be $19.95. Wholesale price is about half of that. So if you know museums or anybody that does retail that would be interested in having one of these, please connect them with us or give them this postcard. We launched last week the map guide sets for the Hudson River Greenway Water Trail. HudsonRiverGreenwayWaterTrail.org is the mobile site. Again, please share this with anybody that may be interested in retailing them or interested in buying wholesale. We're excited about that. And that's basically it for the Heritage Area.
And we also ought to mention that the distinguished co-author of this Hudson River Water Trail Guide is here in a green tie. Scott, you do great stuff. You all know this Hudson River. He is the co-author. He also does all these things too, as well, and a lot of help. But the thing is, it was Scott who came up with the notion of the water trail, and got basically $1 million to be spent for it, and spent, how much did you spend? $720. That's pretty darn good. And well, Scott, anyone who has anything to do with the Hudson River between Albany and New York City is grateful to you for what you've done. Because you've been at this, how many of those damn kayaks do you have?
Just 5.
Just 5, okay. And so you can see them out on the river all the time.
Mark? I tell my wife's son.
Yeah, well, now, Mark.
Well, you all have a copy of my director's report, and you can see all the exciting things that we're working on. But just in closing, as I normally do, I'd like to recognize the staff, Scott, Beth, Chanel, Dan, and our intern Desiree for the amazing work that they do to make all the work that we do possible. So thank you.
Yeah, okay. James?
Yes, sir.
This is a special issue, and tell us about it a little bit, because it's got, and why we should care, and what.
Well, I think that David Schuyler's piece on saving Alana should give us all inspiration. As you already pointed out, it shows how tenacity by the Aldriches and all kinds of other folks can make things happen. There's also another story by one of our interns about Vanderbilt within the context of the centennial of the National Park Service. My boss, Tom Wehrmuth, wrote an interesting piece about how grassroots people celebrated and made their wishes known. I guess we now do that in terms of weddings.
How do you pronounce that? Charivari?
Charivari, yes.
And that's an interesting piece. You all have a copy of it. It's a glorious.
Subscribers, if anybody thinks of subscribers. Also, this is a very special edition. We even have a signature, a color signature in there with photographs and paintings. We hope to really be able to do something special with this issue. Thank you, sir.
And you say something about that fellow Aldrich, too, right?
Yeah, there's some pictures. His family's mentioned in there. Right, David?
Yeah, I think that's the obituary page, isn't it?
Careful. James, anything else?
No, sir. Except we're having a seafood soiree. I will mention this Constitution Island Association, 25th of June, out on Constitution Island. U.S. Army's building an education center. The work, the foundation is already done, and the Army hopes to be able to figure out a way to preserve the Warner House. So that's the next thing that we're looking at on the horizon. Anybody
Well,
like to eat some lobster?
It's a little bit more than that. But, you were the moving force in cementing the relationship, if we could call it that, between the owner, which is West Point, right?
Yes, sir.
And the Warner House Group.
Yes, Constitutional Association will be celebrating its centennial. It was started as the Marteliers Rock Association in 1960. So this little soiree will remember that 100 years, and we're going to say goodbye to the garrison commander, Colonel Andy Dunham, who's been very helpful. He will be moving on to greatness in Washington.
Well, it's a wonderful...
25th of June, website Constitutional Association. Sure.
It's a wonderful story, and it's got a happy ending, and you're the one that made it happen. And any questions or comments about that? We've got a lot of stuff. Mark, what else do we have to do?
That's it. We just have to close the meeting.
We could do...
Next meeting is October 26th at the Henry Wallace Center in Hyde Park.
Okay. So, Kevin, you want to close it up?
Yeah, my honor and pleasure to close the meeting. Thank you all so much for coming today, and we'll see you in the fall. Hope you all have a wonderful summer. It's one of the nicest seasons in the valley, and of course, autumn is even nicer, I think. So, and the ramble will be something that will bind us together in our absence from one another. So, thank you all. Thank you.